Hi, this is Charles, and you're listening to Northern Transmissions. I recently had the chance to sit down with Oliver Ackerman from A Place to Bury Strangers about 30 minutes before showtime at the fabulous Cobalt in Vancouver, BC. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoy it. That was the Fix the Gash in Your Head off A Place to Bury Strangers 2007 self-titled release on Killer Pimp Records. I asked Oliver what it was like playing with one of his biggest musical influences, the Jesus and Mary Chain, at Webster Hall in New York City.
We heard maybe that we are going to get to play with them, and then we found out that we definitely were, like the day before or something like that. So it was like, holy shit. That was, for me, it was mind-blowing, just the event of what was going on. That was really awesome. Being a big fan of the Jesus and Mary Chain and having the chance to do that was rad. It was, the Jesus and Mary Chain were just okay. It wasn't as good as, times I've seen them when I was younger, but, it was still cool. It was awesome.
We talked about playing with a different variety of bands and how sometimes tailoring the set list comes into play, seeing as that Place to Bury Strangers is played with tons of acts from everyone from Brian Jonestown Massacre to MGMT. So I asked him how different crowds affect their live performances.
Well, definitely we try to kind of, we always write our set list probably like 5 minutes before we go on, and it's sort of like kind of playing the show to what we think sort of the vibe of what's going on would sort of kind of fit. I mean, maybe our idea of it is kind of different than what other people would think. Sometimes if it's a mellow show, you really want to fuck shit up, and that might not be. It's not like we're necessarily going to try to like fit or cater to a particular band, but maybe you're at least aware of what's going on and where you're at, and what kind of sort of show maybe it's about to happen. I mean, because you really want to ultimately just get into it and have as much fun as you possibly can. So if you can kind of like gear that set to doing that, that's what we're trying to do. So
here's another song from Place to Bury Strangers. The song is Deadbeat off the 2009 Exploding Head album from Mute Records.
obviously you're a pretty tech savvy guy. Like, how much do you miss? You must miss working in the studio a bit when you're on like long runs on the road. Do you miss that? Or?
Sure, definitely. But you know what? It's like it just kind of makes it that much more exciting to go back and do things and stuff. And that's kind of inspiration for constantly being excited about everything that you're doing. I think, if you spend too much time at home, then you kind of get a little bit of stir crazy with what's going on there. Not so much I live in New York, but and then when you're too much out on the road, you want to kind of go back at times. And so it's kind of inspiration. Like you have all these songs that are going through your head and all these ideas that you've kind of come up with on the road and you want to try out when you get home. So yeah, there's that kind of stuff, but that just keeps life exciting.
Hi, you're listening to Northern Transmissions. I'm talking with Oliver from A Place to Bury Strangers. And we talked about his business of, I was going to say side business, but it is actually a major business, Death by Audio, who manufacture effects pedals for the likes of Trent Reznor and Bono of U2.
Was Trent Reznor, was he happy with his pedals?
Yeah, very happy, because I made him he wanted one kind of as a trial, and then he was like then he was like, I want a duplicate of that exact same pedal, and then he was like, and then I was telling him that I could do all sorts of other crazy things, and he was like, go nuts with another one, and I did that, and he was psyched about them all. And then I think he even like in Los Angeles even found out about me by going to maybe some stores and slowly buying like one effect and then another, and then I think he has them all, and that stuff. So
it wasn't like a word of mouth thing. He just basically stumbled upon your ear, like he was into music, and.
I think so. I'm not sure exactly. I think it could have been because one of the stores that we have, I think it's in Los Angeles, says that Trent or whoever his tech guys are or something go in there a bunch and talk to those guys. So maybe they suggested it. I'm not exactly sure. But,
it's pretty impressive. Something to be proud of, right?
Exactly. It's ridiculous. I can't really believe it at all,
awesome.
But that's cool.
And did you charge Bono a little extra? I was just saying, because I know you did some stuff for you too.
No, they just paid normal price, and
really?
Yeah. So
you're too nice. You should have policed that guy.
Oh, nah, whatever. It's okay.
Cool.
But that was cool too. They ordered more pedals as well, like duplicates, I guess, because maybe they like to have, I don't know, maybe backups of everything that they probably travel around with. I'm sure. Those bigger bands do, like even like Nine Inch Nails. They had some really crazy expensive, beautiful mixing board, and then they had the backup right next to it. So I think at any time at a drop of a hat they could like hit a button and it would be the second crazy board. Yeah, totally.
The show must go on, right?
Exactly.
You're going on a tour like you.
No, sure. Yeah, definitely.
You're grossing $300 million in like 6 months.
Something like that. Yes. Whatever. I mean, it makes complete sense. If you can afford to do it, you want the show to be as perfect as you can have it. So.
That was A Place to Bury Strangers with In Your Heart off the Exploding Head album. And you're listening to Northern Transmissions. Next, we talked about attending the prestigious Rhode Island School of Design.
The experience there is amazing. It was fantastic. It was such a good school. It really helped develop like a really strong work ethic for me, and just like learn so much about design principles, which kind of have to deal with the principles of designing anything, as well as just meet tons of amazing people who were such great inspiration and have really good teachers, and just like I think college is really important, especially one where you get excited about it because it's so inspirational for you to want to have dreams and goals and hopes in your life, and that's the best thing.
On a lighter note, we talked about being proclaimed the world's loudest band.
I mean, it's silly, really. It's kind of funny. It's like it's not very, not too much of an impressive thing. It's kind of almost a dumb thing. I think that's even what it was like in Spinal Tap, the movie, isn't it? Like the loudest band or something like that, So it's a funny thing. So I don't see what's so honorable about being loud. It's kind of dumb. It's like
you say with a bit of smile on your face.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think it's funny, So whatever. I mean, anyone can say anything they want. That's cool. So some people I know who I've talked to definitely are like, oh man, I heard you guys were the loudest band, that's so cool, and so if it gets kids excited, that's fine, whatever. Cool. Yeah.
Here's another track from the world's loudest band, A Place to Bury Strangers. It is Keep Slipping Away off Exploding Head.
This is Oliver from A Place to Bury Strangers, and you're listening to Northern Transmissions.
Mute Records seemed like from their history, great fit for you guys. Like bands, I mean, they have bands like in the past like Can and Wire. I guess in more modernly, like the Wires. Like, how did the marriage come about between you and
they had just, been coming to shows and then kind of like said that they were interested and really interested in the band. And then, I'm always reluctant to do anything, but just like meeting with those guys and stuff and everyone who we met with the offices in the U.S. and the offices in London. And, of course we're big fans of their history, that without a doubt. But, you just want to make sure that you're working with good people. And Mute is the kind of label where it's like everyone you're working with are just awesome music lovers and really cool people that you would want to hang out with anyway. So it was just like perfect. It just seemed like such a great thing, So, I'm used to working with small labels and I always like working with someone who's like really excited to put out the record. And, Mute's like the same way, except you're working with 12 people who are excited to work the record or whatever, as opposed to one dude in his bedroom who's excited.
That's awesome.
It's awesome. It's fantastic. Yeah, totally.
And they're really like music lovers as well.
Oh, so much. It's so awesome. Yeah, totally. All those guys are always going to shows and not even of bands that are on their label and stuff. And, you can have just great conversations about all sorts of types of music and everything. It's awesome. They're a fantastic label.
Cool, yeah, because, there's a lot of parallels, like with your sound, with the bands we've had in the past, obviously.
I'm a big fan. What can I say? Yeah, so sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's great. And the creative control, you guys basically, do they give you mostly free reign to do
whatever we want? Yeah, totally. The thing is though, which is awesome. But it's like we're always limited so much with time because of partially from touring and everything. So you're always scrambling to do all these things. I wish sometimes that we had the time to spend more times on things, but it's like whatever. You kind of got to finish things at times as well too. But it's like, sometimes you're not always insanely psyched about everything that goes out, but it's, whatever, it's still cool. It's amazing to be doing what we're doing, and if I probably had it my way, we probably wouldn't release anything, and so it's all better to have a little bit of a push for things to happen, so...
Thank you for listening to Northern Transmissions. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Oliver from Place to Bury Strangers. As well, I'd like to thank producer extraordinaire Andy Kallstrom, as usual, on the deck here. And yeah, we're going to leave you with the track, I Know I'll See You. Thank you and enjoy.